In this video, you'll hear a health department interviewer conducting an interview with Tim Mitchell, a resident in your county who has been diagnosed with a Shigella infection. This video models how to navigate a situation where an interviewee works in a high-risk setting. Before conducting an interview, be sure you are familiar with your agency's protocols for determining and providing work or school exclusions. For this scenario, cases with Shigella who work as food handlers should be excluded from work or school in high-risk settings until completing 2 negative stool tests at least 24 hours apart. Hello, may I speak with Tim Mitchell?
Yeah, this is Tim.
Hi, Tim. My name is Alex. I'm an epidemiologist calling from the Broome County Health Department. I'm hoping to talk to you about a recent illness and laboratory test you had taken sometime last week. Does that sound right?
Yeah, my doctor mentioned you might be calling to ask some questions.
Okay, great. Well, before we jump in, let me give you a bit of background information just so you know what to expect from the call. When asking questions about employment or other related activities, avoid making assumptions and ask all questions using a non-judgmental, neutral tone. So the next section of questions asks about other activities you might have participated in during the time before you became sick and in the time since you've become sick. Do you currently do anything for work or volunteering?
Yeah, I just work right now.
Okay, got it. What do you do for work?
I'm not sure. Why do you need to know that?
If an interviewee is hesitant to share their employment information, explain why the information is collected and restate confidentiality. It can also be helpful to provide some specific examples of when an employer would be contacted about an illness and what would be shared. I can understand your hesitation to share that. Let me explain a little bit more about why we collect the information about occupation here. So, there are certain types of jobs that are more likely to lead to additional illness spread, and that includes any roles where individuals handle food directly or anyone that's providing direct medical care. I'll also just remind you here that any responses you choose to provide will be kept confidential. So there are a few situations where we might contact your employer to notify them of the potential of an illness outbreak or to offer them guidance on preventing others from getting sick. But in these situations, we would only notify them that they have an employee that was ill. We wouldn't ever be specifying your name or your information.
Now, I guess that makes sense. So I wouldn't be getting in trouble.
Exactly. So our goal is not to get any worker or any business into trouble. We're much more focused on preventing anyone else from getting sick.
Okay, gotcha. I work at a restaurant downtown.
Once you determine that an interviewee works in a high-risk setting, gather relevant information about their position before ending the call. Got it. Okay, thanks for that information. Which restaurant do you work at?
It's called Taco Bar.
Okay. Do you know by chance the address of the taco bar?
Let me find it. It's 240 West 3rd Street.
Perfect. What kind of role do you have at the restaurant? Do you do anything with food preparation, cooking, serving food?
Yeah, I'm a line cook, so I do prep and cooking stuff.
Got it. Okay, so before you mentioned that you were first feeling sick on July 1st, which looks like that was a Friday, did you work that day or any time so far during this week?
Yeah, I was at work on Friday and then again Monday. On Tuesday, I called in sick and I've been out of work since then.
Got it. That's really helpful. So it sounds like you worked Friday and Monday, which were both days that you were feeling ill. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I wasn't that sick those days, though. Not enough to call in, at least.
While remaining respectful, provide the interviewee with clear guidance about recommendations for returning to work. Sure. I can understand that sometimes it can feel like we need to push through and go to work even if we're feeling sick. However, the job you are in is one that has a high risk of illness spreading between different workers or from workers to customers. So, in the future, the public health guidance is to be sure you stay home from work if you're feeling sick, especially if you notice any of the symptoms with GI illness like diarrhea or anything like that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, am I going to get in trouble for going into work?
Well, I can't speak directly for your employer, but I can say that our goal at the health department is not to get you into trouble. What's most important at this point is that you continue to stay home from work until we make sure that there isn't any chance for disease spread to occur.
So, how long am I going to have to miss work for?
Acknowledge and validate an interviewee's concerns related to work exclusions as they arise. Avoid making any guarantees about the timing of returning to work. Well, that can vary. So there are different guidelines depending on what infection someone is ill with, based on how likely it is that others might be able to become sick. So you had tested positive for a Shigella infection, which is one that can be easily spread through occupations like yours, where you're directly handling food items. So we will need to have you collect and submit two separate samples of stool that test negative for the bacteria before going back to work. So this can be done either at your doctor's office or through our public health laboratory. The samples will need to be taken at least 24 hours apart and at least 48 hours after you finish any antibiotics, if you're taking any. But we will work with you to get started with this whole process as soon as we can.
Got it. That sounds like it could take a while, but I do understand.
Let the interviewee know what to expect for any future communication in coordinating their work exclusion situation. If applicable, provide the interviewee with any referrals to community supports or resources that may be helpful. I really appreciate that. So right now, I'll go ahead and have someone from your local health department get into contact with you as soon as they can, and they'll start coordinating with you about collecting those stool samples for testing. They may also be able to suggest some community resources if you expect you might have any financial or other needs related to missing work, but they're going to reach out to you over the phone. So just watch for a call, probably later on today from them. Before conducting an interview, be sure you are familiar with your agency's protocols for determining and providing work or school exclusions. When asking questions about employment or other related activities, avoid making assumptions and ask all questions using a non-judgmental, neutral tone. If an interviewee is hesitant to share their employment information, explain why the information is collected and restate confidentiality. It can also be helpful to provide some specific examples of when an employer would be contacted about an illness and what would be shared. Once you determine that an interviewee works in a high-risk setting, gather relevant information about their position before ending the call. While remaining respectful, provide the interviewee with clear guidance about recommendations for returning to work. Acknowledge and validate an interviewee's concerns related to work exclusions as they arise. Avoid making any guarantees about the timing of returning to work. Let the interviewee know what to expect for any future communication in coordinating their work exclusion situation. If applicable, provide the interviewee with any referrals to community supports or resources that may be helpful.